Welcome back. Today we're going to look at another one of my favourite tracks ever. This is Melt by Leftfield. Just want to say thanks so much for all your comments and everything and views. Thanks for watching. It really means the world to me. Thank you. It's so nice to share this journey with all you guys. So let's analyse, break down and see the samples, the synths and the secrets that went into making this classic track. So this time I've sequenced out the whole track. So let's have a listen and we'll see how we go. So we have a nice slow volume fade. Track just creeps in with the pad. And we've got that bit of wind sound and we've got this bonk. So first of all we've got a pad. So the key of this track is it just goes C sharp to B. Just goes between those two kind of notes. The chords for the pad, so it's C sharp and G sharp, and then B and F sharp. I struggled a little bit to find a good sound for this, and I experimented a lot. One of the synths I know they used was PPG Wave. A company that continued the lineage of that PPG synth is Waldorf, and they actually have a PPG VST, but I found that quite difficult to use. But they have another one called Largo, so that's this synth, and with this synth I managed to find a similar kind of sounding patch. It's not bang on, but it's not too far off. So that's the pad. Then we have the digital wind. So we just have a bit of basically just white noise. So I created that. So it's white noise filtered with a low pass filter. So for that I used Diva, and I used this oscillators modeled after the JP8000, I believe. And I used the noise from that and then just used a filter. And I just had a tiny bit of modulation on the LFO. It's not really audible. If I increase the depth... Oops, I've broken it. So obviously that's too much, but just a tiny bit, just moving the filter a little bit. So it's a really nice touch. It's just quite a subtle sound, but it really adds a lot, in my opinion. Then we have this cool sound. It plays again a bit louder here. I'm just going to skip on. Oh, that's really nice, isn't it? I didn't quite manage to recreate this. This is my version. It's not really the same. But what I did was I reached for the synth I really learnt synthesis on is Zebra. So this is Zebra HZ. So what I did, this is mainly resonance. So I'm using this filter with max resonance, modulated by an LFO, quite fast. And then I've got this high pass filter very high up as well, with more resonance on it. So it's a rough approximation. I probably could get a bit closer if I spent a bit more time. But moving on to the next sound, I'm really not happy with the job I did on this one. So this drove me a bit nuts. I'm so familiar with it. I really felt like I could get closer, but this is as close as I could get. I've got another version because I did it with another synth. I mean, it's quite close, but it's just... I wish I knew exactly what synth was used. I feel like I could do it if I knew that. I've done it here with the Juno, the Arturia Juno. So we've got basically very short envelope. And the notes, fairly interesting, so that they're quite spread apart. We've got like this... And actually, I used the gate mode instead of the envelope. So this comes in, and then in a minute the drums come in. We've just got these hi-hats, and I just about managed to recreate something fairly close. It's not bang on. So I'm using 606 hats, and I'm using Echo Boy on the ping pong delay to get this sound. Ping pong delay and quite a lot of reverb. That's more or less it. Let's check the original. It's not quite right, but it's close. And then we had a little tease of the beautiful trumpet sample from this track, Gosha Kabuchi. So this is this tune, a nice jazz record released on ECM. Like some others in this series, it's not really pitched or anything. It's just at its normal pitch. But we've got two parts of the sample being used. So I've done it as I've done it before. I've created two zones. So we've got, that's here in the track. And then if we go to our second one, it's further on. So that's the sample, and that's from the track. So let's have a listen. You'll notice it's not on the grid. It's evidently been played in. They've just felt it, and sounds completely right to me. But it's the sort of thing I probably would have stuck it on the grid. Another lesson there, I feel like. Next, we've got the beautiful, big, bad bass. But let's have a listen to the original. Oh, so we've got the lovely bass coming in, and then we have the sample, which is from The Art of Noise, the track Ransom on the Street. Let's look at that quickly. This is, again, fairly simple. They haven't pitched it or really changed anything. They've just chosen this part, only one part. So they've just taken that part. Sounds amazing. I love it. And it's an amazing texture, isn't it? You could never synthesize that sound. Well, I never could. But speaking of synthesizing, let's have a look at the bass. I'm quite happy with this. I feel like I'm fairly close. So what have I done? Well, I've boosted the bass with EQ. A big thing which I've learnt in doing this series is the importance of keyboard tracking in synths. And I've never really paid much attention to that, but it's actually something I forgot to mention in the Little Fluffy Clouds riff video. Let's have a look at the notes quickly. So we've got this kind of little arp, but it's quite important that this is brighter than this, so the filter cutoff is higher, otherwise it wouldn't work. So we reduce the keyboard, the key follow. It's like this. But with the keyboard key follow, we get that nice little bang. So it's really nice the way the texture of the notes changes just by dint of where they are. It's kind of a little bit subtle, but it's quite powerful, and I'm quite impressed by it. So that's the sequence. So we have just an octave. So it's just octaves, really. It's quite a cool idea for a bass line. I never would have thought of doing 3 octaves. And then we just go down to the B. So C sharp, octaves, and then B flat, or just B. So let's have a listen to my version. Let's have a listen to the original. So then I'm so frustrated I couldn't find this sound, and I couldn't even find anything very close. This sound. To me it sounds, you hear that sound, it's a bit like an elephant going. I'm pretty sure it's a trumpet or a saxophone or something, but it's quite avant-garde. I actually trawled kind of Miles Davis's back catalogue. I looked at all his 70s crazy stuff like Bitches Brew to try and find the sample. I couldn't find it. If you find it, please let me know. Yeah, so we've got that going on. We've also got this little sound, which I didn't really get, but it's a little chord. Yeah, I'm not that happy with my version. But that comes in. So we've got, there's the crazy trumpet sounds and this bunk. And then the trumpet comes back in, the main trumpet. Which, by the way, is very nicely in key. Da, da, da. So this is the bass sound, but that's the notes of the trumpet. So that's very nice. So let's have a listen. Again, to me it's so iconic. Like, this is a bit like the vocal in Little Fluffy Clouds, but this trumpet is almost quite randomly played in. Like, it's not in time, it's not in the grid. They've more or less chosen a random part of it, but it feels so right. It just feels like it was always meant to be there. I find that very cool. So the next part, we have a little change. Let's have a listen. So this time the pad doesn't change down. We just keep it going for 4 bars. And then without any fanfare, we have this amazing lead sound coming in, which I absolutely love. So I'll show the MIDI, but I'll play the original. So this is the lead sound coming in that I'm showing the MIDI of. Oh, wow. So I got quite close. I'm quite happy with the sound I got for this. Let's have a listen to my version. I just think that's such a great melody. I never would think to play that. It's quite ethereal, isn't it? And otherworldly. Yeah, hats off to them. Hats off to them. So a little story about this tune. I borrowed Leftism from a friend in the 6th form. Went home and lay on my bed, maybe having had some kind of herbal encouragement. And I put this on. And when this track came on, I wasn't so into the first two. They're a bit boom, boom. I really wasn't into dance music at the time, but this track came on and basically it wasn't like a hallucination, but I closed my eyes and in my head, each sound like became a thing. Like the kind of wind sound was the wind, and then this other sound was like a seagull or something. And it just really took me to another place, took me to another world, and I've loved it ever since. So what have we got? We've got this small chord. So this time on this drop, to keep up a bit of a momentum, we have this sound, but we have it like a snare on the 2. I believe we have this I've called small chord, which was here, and we have this blippy sound, which I wasn't able to get that close to. So this is Diva. Basically, it's like a Jupiter 8 envelope, quite short. So I've got the amp envelope and the filter on envelope 1, quite short with a little bit of attack. A bit more resonance, and it sounds like there's some pitch. Maybe if I do this. Then we have some really nice percussion coming in. I've got something that's a little bit similar, but really I need to know what the sample is. You can actually hear it more on its own a bit later on here. I suspect it's like some kind of tribal drumming slowed down. I even thought it might be like a shaker, but really like slowed down. If you can't, it's very difficult to get something very close if you don't have the right sample. What I've got is this action loop percussive, and I've got something fairly similar. At least the rhythm is quite similar. So if I just play the loop. And I've just looped this one bar. I've EQ'd it a bit, gave it a bit of compression. EQ'd it to bring out these higher frequencies more. Might do a bit more even. Gave it this align delay. This is quite a cool Ableton plugin. So I'm just making the left 31.2 milliseconds later, and it gives it a nice stereo-ness, which if you listen to the sample I'm trying to recreate, there's a really nice stereo aspect to it. Let's just have a listen here. Yeah, I love that sound, and it gives really nice movement without, we haven't got a big kick or snare in there, so it keeps the mellowness of the track, but we just get really nice momentum. It's not boring. The track is going somewhere, which is really important. So what does it do next? So I have this section with this nice lead, I've called string lead. I love doing this because it really shows how much is in the arrangements. For example, this Ransom on the Sand, it's an amazing sound. You might think, I need it in the track all the time, but they use it fairly sparingly, and the same with the trumpet. It's only actually plays 6 times, this trumpet sample. So then we drop out everything, and we have a new sound coming in, this LFO sound. So let's listen to the original. Lovely. For the first time in the track, and the only time, the pad cuts out, the digital wind comes back, the bass stays in, and we get this sound. I'm quite happy with what I've got for this sound. It's not quite bang on, but this is what I got. We've got this pan man just to give it the panning, dynamic panning, which is part of the sound. So how did I make this? So I went to my trusty Zebra. So we've got some pitch modulation. Basically, it's all about this MSEG. It's a bit weird. It almost sounds like we don't need the 2 would-a-woo, but I couldn't recreate it. If you know how this was done, because I'm pretty positive they didn't do it like this. I think it's either an LFO modulating another LFO or maybe an envelope modulating an LFO. But please let me know if you know, because they wouldn't have had access to this kind of thing, I'm pretty sure, unless they had a synth with kind of mad envelopes like this. Basically, I got something close to the rhythm with that, and then I used that to modulate the pitch, just doing it 7 semitones, and also on the volume and the panning. And then I've got a slower LFO on the, this is LFO G2, on the cutoff. So that's just gently raising and lowering the cutoff independently of the notes. So this is just creating this slow. I was fairly proud of myself, if I'm honest, to get that close to that sound. So it's kind of a square wave, basically. I think I put a little bit of, bit of distortion on it as well. So without, it's like that. And with, just adds a little bit of crunch. And I think that's fairly close. And I'm pretty sure they would have recorded that in, like they're slowly bringing it up. It's got the automatic panning, but they're slowly bringing out the filter and they're doing it in with the track. I just love how they've just taken everything out, and it's such a simple thing to do, but then it adds so much interest. Now we drop out even the bass, so we've just got just LFO sound and digital wind. Then we have the crickets make their comeback, and then we have what I've called triumph springs. So we've got this kind of climax of the track with these amazing strings. Oh, that's amazing. So it's a proper drop, you know. This track doesn't just do one thing, it ebbs and flows. And even though it's like a chill out track, you get a feeling something's definitely happening. So we've got the pad coming in, the bass coming back in, these drums, these hats, the perk, the LFO sound stays in, and then we've got these strings. So I'm fairly happy with what I got for these strings. I actually doubled this up, and this is this synthesizer Largo again. I tried a few things. I tried the D50, but this is what I got. It does sound a little bit rubbish, but in the mix, I think it's okay. Yeah, I could have done a bit better actually, maybe. So it's quite a simple melody. I think they've just done it in octaves. So we've got the C sharp, G sharp, B, F sharp, G sharp, and then D sharp. Yeah, again, it's this kind of, I would never think to do that with that kind of sound. Dun, 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 dun. It's the sort of thing you might use with more of a lead sound, but they've done it like a strings sound. Let's listen to theirs. And it's got lovely effects on it. I think I could get a bit closer if I was a bit more. I wondered if that was a chord, if it maybe had like a fifth in it instead of just being octaves, but I don't think it is right. I did put it in and it sounded wrong, but if you're hearing something different, let me know, please. Next, they managed to manipulate this LFO sound, so let's just have a little listen to the original. Nice. So just a bit of movement. Like, so often when you're making a track, it's tempting to just to throw another sound in there or something, whereas changing what's there is such a powerful way to create interest. So I've just re-triggered the sound, and it's okay. It's a bit of a click, so it's not quite... It kind of sounds a bit like it. So then we drop back into something familiar. We've got the mad trumpet that I couldn't get, but we get this arp, the drums, and we get the lovely trumpet sound again. Coming to the end of the track now. So we have that section, then we have one more section where we have the digital wind, we get the Ransom on the Street sound back, and we get this lovely string lead back. Play my version. And again, it's such an education, because this string lead is really cool, I would say. Hopefully you agree. But they're not putting it throughout the track. They're using it very sparingly. We've got it for, I don't know, like 16 bars or so. And then we've got it for another 8 bars, and that's it. Which means that every time you hear it, it sounds great. And then we've just got the track winding down, basically. So the bass dropping out, this stays in, these drums stay in, this little blippy arp staying in, and the pad. And then we just stay with this chord. We don't change down. Just make this a nice long. And of course, in the album, that tail leaks into, like melts into the next track, Song of Life. So I hope you found that helpful. I find it really fascinating. It's such an amazing piece of music, and it really inspires me to try and do something as good. Next time, I'm planning to do a track by the Chemical Brothers, Sunshine, the Sunshine Underground. So if you want to see that, hit subscribe and take care. See you soon.